could just say something about the teachers, as far as, the pay and everything. I'm with you on that because I really believe that it doesn't matter, how much education or how many initials. I've always believed it takes a special person to be a teacher. And it could be, right out of college, or it could be, 20
second
years.
career, yeah.
It takes they have to have something special, that magic touch inside of them. And
It's so hard to quantify that, though, to pay them for it.
Yes.
That's the challenge.
I wish every teacher could, have that. So if this helps that and weeds out the ones.
Well, and that's my hope. I mean, that is my hope. Some of the things people are like, I hate that you're laying off any teachers. Well, there's some teachers that need to go. So I feel bad for those teachers if they didn't find another certification, but we can't keep a class open with 6 kids in it, even if they're wonderful.
Are you going to take that family science position and make it a technology position and make it
The biggest enrollment in career technical education right now is business and marketing. It's the biggest enrollment, which is not why. My daughter was totally inspired by her business marketing teacher. Okay. And that's what she's actually majoring in at NC State is business marketing education. That's huge in high schools right now.
Just make a remark about maybe a 30-year teacher, a veteran. Our daughter had a teacher last year. She retired last year. And but you hear a lot of people say, "Oh my God, you're really good to see. She's mean, she's rough." But you know what? She turned out to be the best teacher that our daughter had. You didn't work with her class, you didn't do foolish things, she put you in line, she made you sit up straight. I mean, even though she was 30 years,
Oh, and that's what
I'm just saying,
there's not.
There's a balance there.
There is got to be a balance.
That first grade teacher she had was
we had a teacher. I was in one class, and my best friend's kids were in the class next door. And this teacher was going to retire in May and knew it from the beginning of the school year. And my friend would just every day go, "Oh my God, why did she just already retire? Because she's already checked out." So you have different mentalities. I mean, but if you've got a teacher that is still passionate about it, then they're going to be good in year 3 and year 30. We do know that if the teacher is doing a good job in year 4, that they're probably always going to do a good job. It's the first 3 years because college teaches them a lot, and colleges of education are having to do a paradigm shift as well. It's not just knowing the content, it's knowing classroom management and all those things. So in a school like this where they work in teams and they do a lot of coordinating together, like the 3rd grade team meets together. If you've got a couple veterans and a couple new teachers, they're going to really help them with their classroom management skills and all those things that make them a better classroom manager so that their passion and their desire and all those things can actually spill out and be effective in the classroom. So, because it does take a combination of all those, and it's hard to learn classroom management in a college class.
Oh, yeah.
Or in your 1 semester of student teaching and all that. So it's a very fine line. North Mech has an awesome program called Teacher Cadet. My daughter actually was a student teacher at Blythe Elementary for the first semester in kindergarten. It's very cool, as a high school student.
Does CMS offer early retirement?
No, but the state is talking about doing that this year.
Yeah, they did
The
that
state
in
has a
California.
proposal. Actually, it was in the governor's budget, and I don't know where that's going to go by the time it goes through the House and Senate. There's no telling.
on pay performance? Is it teacher only or is it staff?
No, it is everybody. Actually, I'm on the policy committee, and which is the funnest part of what I do. Well, not the funnest part. The funnest part is coming out and doing stuff like I did yesterday, which was reading to 5th graders at Croft Elementary and doing stuff like this. But the other thing I do is on the policy committee, we establish all the policies that set the regulations and procedures for the school system.
Which grade are that?
We are. We actually have to do Dr. Gorman's evaluation, and he'll have specific performance measures, and based on what we're doing, his contract has to be rewritten to fit the performance-based initiative, and he knows that, and he's okay with that. We're actually trying to write an evaluation for the school board, but we sort of feel like we get evaluated at election time pretty well. I mean, and it's kind of like, how do we evaluate it? I don't know. We're trying to figure out, is there a way that we could evaluate ourselves, but we can't actually be fired. We could resign, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure. We kind of all feel like we do get evaluated at election time, if indeed we ever want to run again. I don't know if there's an impeachment process. I think the town of Davidson wanted to impeach me last fall. I think they're better now, just because I closed their school.
In your overall opinion, how's Dr. Gorman doing? I mean, I know you have disagreements sometimes, but
Oh,
your
yeah.
overall opinion?
I mean, I think that he has incredible vision an incredible initiative and incredible understanding of what is needed to reform a school district. We were in a very status quo school district, and I think that anytime you make changes, it's going to be very scary, and there's going to be the fear factor that's out there right now. I am more impressed with him than I would have thought that I would be, and I have more respect for him than I thought I would as a leader. He takes a lot of hard knocks, and he looked at me last night. He knew I was leaving, and he looked at me and he goes, "I'm okay with this," because he knew that we were going to discuss this. This is all the ways we think you screwed up, Dr. Gorman and staff. We need you to answer all of these. And that's basically what we said to them last night. Here's all the questions we need you to answer in public about why we think you screwed up and all the mistakes that were made on the field test. And he said, the buck stops with me. We did make mistakes. Oddly enough, the chief of accountability just pretty much got offered the superintendency at the Fulton County school system, so he'll be leaving. Well, he's the only candidate for the final choice. So I'm pretty sure after the 2-week period, Robert Avosa is going to be heading to Fulton County.
What are your thoughts about that extra 45 minutes for the elementary schools? I mean, like, what do you think should be done in that time?
Oh, instructional.
More
I don't-
mini math or what?
No, I think more 20th century learning, 21st century learning. I think more creative, out of the box type stuff. I think one of the things that happened in middle schools about 7 years ago in middle schools is they developed what's called the 9th block, where they shifted around how they moved between classes, so they had an extra 45-minute block in there. And what they did during that block, actually was before I was on the school board, but I was really so into the program. In 6th grade, they had the first semester, all the 6th graders during this 45-minute extra that they squeezed in from just 5 minutes here and there. They actually had the first semester, they spent learning how to manage their time management, project management, kind of the AVID program, so they could learn different ways of note-taking and different ways of managing your time when you're going from being in a very sheltered environment in elementary school to multiple teachers and changing classes. And after that, they had dance team, they had jazz band, they had French, they had a lot of different electives that you could take, they had government. They had a lot of different things that you could take that expanded kind of your curriculum, but it wasn't adding any cost to the day because the time was still there. So it would be my hope that the principals will use that time for creative outlets for learning and not recess and not necessarily sitting in front of a textbook. And I'm sure there's plans for that.
Every single child will go through a different growth challenge throughout their life, and to have a teacher be held accountable to who wants this job and wants to do the best for their class and the best for their students, which will rise to the challenge, and which children they're gonna really understand those kids and give them the opportunity, so that we're not paying for them in institutions after the fact, but instead making them productive citizens, and that everybody else can learn to understand those people who may not have that natural gifting. Maybe they're not top of the board, but that needs to be understood and accepted. And so thank you very much for changing CMS over the last few years to inclusion, because I know it was. Thank you.
There's only one person in the room that knows this. Len knows this. My sister, I have to say, 9 years ago went to the Ukraine and adopted 2 children. And they're both very special. And they have struggled infinitely in their education. And they were inclusion. And I went to their IEP meetings with my sister. She's a single mom and wanted to be a mom so bad she went to an orphanage and found her 2 children and brought them home. And so they were chosen by God to be part of our family. And they couldn't read, they couldn't hold scissors when they were 4 years old, when they came off the plane. And we struggled every step of the way. And they are so special to be there in 7th grade now. And Julia made the honor roll for the first time in her whole life. And I think I posted on my Facebook page, and I get very emotional when I talk about them, but I had to teach them how to hold a spoon and a fork because they ate with their fingers when they were 4 years old when they got off the plane from the orphanage. So when I talk about inclusion, when I talk about the importance of an effective teacher, one of they're twins, they actually are real twins. Max is the boy, Julie's the girl. One of them did not have a teacher in kindergarten that appreciated or could understand that she was totally different than any child she'd ever seen before. And I was working at home. It ended up that halfway through the school year, or halfway through the first quarter, she got suspended for raising your hand and hitting a teacher in the face by accident, because you don't come to a child that's been raised in an orphanage in any threatening manner. They will be react like an animal almost. So I would pick her up at 10 o'clock every day and take her home and homeschool her. And I did the red apple circles, and I did the pony beads, A-B patterning, and AABB and all this. And I worked with her nonstop, because her teacher looked at me in an IEP and said, I just don't understand, I can't figure out how to teach this child, she's so far behind. I said, you need to get a job in another school district. She did.
I had it.
Because I complained about her so much. I said, you can't possibly tell me, I'm sorry that you're sheltered and you're in the little suburban world here, but there are children out there that are just as far behind as my niece is. And you should be able to figure out something to do with her other than they set her at a desk and gave her a pair of scissors and had her chop up paper for like an hour. So people wonder where my desire to be a school board member and my advocacy for children, it came because of what I went through with my daughter and saw how they reacted to her. I also saw how a teacher completely closed her mind to my niece. But now she got a great teacher, and we held her back. She repeated kindergarten because they needed to. And if you knew them now, you would never, ever, ever know how they got here with shaved heads from the orphanage. Actually, Julia's hair was this long. I couldn't tell which one was the boy and which was the girl when they got off the airplane. So I'm very emotional. When I talk about inclusion, their lives have been changed because of it. And they have benefited, and I've had other teachers stop me, and people still stop me, how their lives have been changed by knowing Max and Julia and watching how they've grown. They changed lives. And teachers do everything. That's why, I mean, teachers, I think the school board's really out to get them right now. We're not. I'm out to figure out how to make sure that the really good ones stay and want to be and are rewarded. And I wish the ones that don't have a passion for it. I get choked up when I talk about good teachers because I care that much. I hope that they do too. Is there any other school questions?
I'm just curious, because the budget, I mean, they need to make cuts. Parent University, is it all really worth it?
It is all private. Yeah, it's privately grant funded.
Okay, so that's.
There is not a. It is not.
paying.
It is not in the budget.
Okay.
I have hounded Mr. Gorman about that, Dr. Gorman about that forever. Middle school sports. If any of you guys have fifth graders and are heading towards middle school soon, I've started with another group because I have all the free time in the world. But it's called SaveMiddleSchoolSports.com. We're trying to put together, we've actually got a foundation called Student Athlete Foundation of Mecklenburg County, and we're trying to do private fundraising to keep the program alive. And Dr. Gorman is being very receptive to that, and it feels like that we're going to be successful. But jump on the website. Bailey Road's going to start some kind of community outreach with it, because we've got to raise the money, and it needs to be raised. I don't want to cut teacher salaries to pay for sports. So that $1.2 million that it costs is going to have to come privately. And I think it will. I wish I had started sooner than April on this, but...
I have another question. My daughter got into the IB program and is moving to Alexandria.
Yep.
And I understand the reasons for why the building at Davidson is being shut down. But, I mean, Alexandria is just as bad.
It is. Not quite as bad. It didn't score quite as bad. I mean, it does have central air conditioning, which the Davidson IB facility doesn't, and it does meet most of the Americans for Disability standards, which Davidson IB was so far off base on that. It does need renovations. It is considered the top priority if indeed we ever are able to sell bonds again and build new schools. It is considered the top priority for a new school. What will likely happen is it's going to be a whole new school built on an adjacent site, and they'll build it while the school's open, and then they'll close it down. I can't even get money to build the Stumptown Elementary to relieve Torrance Creek right now, so, and I'm the queen of wanting to build schools. That's what I've done for the left. I helped to make sure we got funding to build this school when I was with FUME, and we lobbied for it. So it does need it. I am happy, though, that the enrollment for JM Alexander is actually about 70 kids over the IB enrollment from Davidson IB, and Dr. Carney is going to be the principal, which will be amazing.
She's wonderful, that's fine, but...
So yeah, it's not that much of a better building. It really isn't. It's not like we moved to. There are some parts that are good. The science building with all the labs is excellent. It just opened about 5 years ago.
It's just going from here and going there the other night.
It's very dark.
It's
very dark. The hallways are very dark and low, and it was built in the 50s. If you talk to some of the pillars of this community, they went to school there.
I haven't been to North Lake since I graduated, but is it
It's not. There's a whole new 2-story science wing there as well that opened in the back by the football field. And they have an amazing new principal. My daughter went through the IB program. She didn't go to middle school IB. She was at Bradley. We never could get in because it was such small enrollment, so we never could get in. So she went to Bradley, did the high flyers in middle school, and then ended up in the IB program at North. And she's in college now, and she's actually taking Spanish 5 in her second semester of her freshman year because she placed out of 4 years of Spanish because of her IB. So it's kind of cool. I didn't have to pay for much of that. She's actually got a Spanish minor by taking 3 classes because the IB is such a great program. But Mr. Hayes, the new principal there, really wants to make that, and those 3 principals are going to work together to make it an IB campus
Right.
where there's a lot of interaction between the 3. So North Mech has improved vastly.
So does that mean they're gonna try to make Alexander all IB? Because it's.
No, it'll still
like
have,
going to all
no,
IB?
but they'll both still have a home attendance zone, but we're trying to open up as much room as possible for IB at all of them. And North is not all IB, but it has its highest enrollment in the last 5 years
In the IB.
in the IB program.